I want to bring in my guests. I'm joined with Andrii Telizhenko. He is a Ukrainian whistleblower, diplomat, former diplomat, and a good friend of the show. Andrii, man, how you doing? You doing all right?
Good morning, Jamal. Doing perfectly fine. I hope everybody else is also well. And
I
a lot of developments, as always.
a lot of developments, and I guess there are two things. The mineral deal is the first thing that comes to mind. The RADA still needs to approve this. Is the RADA going to approve this deal?
Of course, like Zelensky has the majority in the parliament. Like he controls everybody with threats and prosecutions. So there's no opposition in the parliament. Basically, they're all owned by not just Zelensky, but the West. So
Mhm.
it might go through pretty well. It might go not well because if the British and the Europeans would want to pull out people like Poroshenko, who they also control in the parliament, and have them try to push a political narrative. So, but overall, the parliament is owned by Zelensky. They will do whatever it takes to go and support his actions, illegal actions in Ukraine, selling off Ukraine to the West, making it become a more colony than it already is. And there's no people to fight, so now they're going to give away Ukrainian territory, minerals, and etc. For a war Ukraine has already lost. So this is what Zelensky's Ukraine is today, and I totally agree on what you're talking about here. This is just going forward with an escalation process, which everybody thought could have been stopped and could have not been proceeded. But I think things will not be as they seem right now. Hopefully, that there's going to be another track to work things out. Because for the United States right now, the main thing is to save their face for the Trump administration to show that they can get something out of Ukraine with the money they invested in from the Biden administration into the Kiev regime, which sold out, gave away that money, put into the pockets, laundered that money, and was basically used for monetization of the Zelensky and the Biden regime. So that this is one idea. The other idea is deals are written. Nobody saw that deal. What is it in it? I'd want to because there's only things in the press that we're talking about, but nobody showed a copy of that deal to
Right.
the Ukrainian population. Like there's a copy running around right now in the telegram from some members of parliament, but that's like just draft. Nobody showed like a copy with the signature. What did Ukraine give away? What did Zelensky give away for to continue to fight this war? To get more money from America or get at least to buy weapons from America. What did he sell off from Ukraine? Nobody saw that, and also the American population never saw what did the U.S. get. Nobody saw a signed copy, which is interesting for me to, as a citizen of my country and a U.S. citizen, to also find out what did their government sign and get a signed copy written to show what is the deal in there, what is it to gain.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, from my understanding, this goes into perpetuity. Um, it's for things going forward, not backwards. Meaning the whole $350 billion that Donald Trump was talking about, that's not the case. Effectively, anything that is purchased now can be purchased basically on credit with the notion that the deal will pay it back when money is coming back in from the deal. The rub is, though, that if it goes into perpetuity, if this thing goes for, let's say, 50 years, that could equal up to $500 billion if indeed they can pull money out of Ukraine in the way that they're talking about pulling money out of Ukraine. So I guess from Donald Trump's point of view, whether I get 350 billion, yeah, at some point we'll get it. Just because we made the deal, we get 50-50 out of anything that we put into it. Also, it's not just a mineral deal. Like they keep using this term mineral deal in this kind of very propagandistic way. Oil, gas, pretty much anything you can pull out of the ground, it's the minerals, pretty much anything, right? Just
And
Ukrainians' natural resources.
and not
And
just
now,
resources, but also infrastructure, energy infrastructure,
yeah,
and nuclear stations, etc. So, like, I just want to add for U.S., it's a win, right? Like, anyway, it's a win-win situation, one way or another. They're going to get something out of it. It's not Afghanistan that how Biden pulled out and invested $2 trillion and left tons of weapons in there, and the Taliban is much more better equipped than the Kiev regime today. So basically, that was the result. And but for Ukraine and for Ukrainians, it's an understanding what did Ukraine get? Nothing. There's no win for Ukraine. It's a lose, lose, lose for Ukraine, one way or another. Even if it goes under Moscow, this deal will, if it will stay in the fact with Russia, like I'm saying, not under Moscow, like
Yeah.
physically, totally, Russia will, Ukraine be part of Russia, even though who knows, some things might happen. But like Ukraine, as whatever is left of Ukraine, will be under the Moscow umbrella, which Ukraine was for years and years before, and it was actually gaining much more than losing in the last 30 years. Ukraine lost in the last 30 years, everything we gained under Soviet Union. All the factories, everything they got, the people, territories, now it's lost. So if that even happens, it's the deal still may work for the United States. They might have investments in Ukraine and they might work, and I think Russia's ready to work with that. But the problem is Ukrainians itself. This deal is not a deal. It's a destruction and a colonization of Ukraine more and more, just to continue the war, just to continue a war for another month, 2 months, because Ukraine wants what Zelensky wants, and Trump allowed Zelensky to buy weapons, $15 million and over, or military articles, whatever he calls them. And that's anti-aircraft missile systems, etc., etc. So that kind of stuff, and Ukraine is willing to buy it, even though it doesn't have the money to buy it. It's going to get loans from the West to buy that equipment, and then continue this war with basically without not being able to pay out those loans to the World Bank. They're not going to get it from the United States. Trump said directly, U.S. is not going to give money to Ukraine to continue this war, but Ukraine can buy stuff. So this is what it's going to be up to. Ukraine is going to totally put itself in a ditch more and more with getting more and more loans, which it cannot pay out to the World Bank. And the US won't care about it, of course, that's how it is. But for Trump, it's a win situation because it's not Afghanistan anymore for him. He already, if he exits Ukraine, he has a deal on the table, even if it's going to take 50 years. If he's going to get stuff back, I think he's going to give it less. He's going to get things back if he makes a deal with Russia on a peace deal and U.S. leaves Ukraine. I think U.S. can make more money together with Russia, trillions of dollars with the Arctic, with investments in Russia, investments in Ukraine, if it actually goes on peace, not continues this war. So Trump needs to not just think about the situation with Ukraine that he already won, but he has to think more broader that he can make a better deal if he goes out of Ukraine and U.S. leaves Ukraine totally, not just continues this war.
There's something else with this. The Brits, because the UK had already signed like a 30-year deal with Ukraine for mineral rights also. And there's something in this apparently that where it says it doesn't conflict. Like one doesn't conflict with the other, which I don't quite fully get how they couldn't conflict with the other. Um, but that was the other thing that came up, that the British had already signed a deal with Ukraine also for mineral rights. Some people call it a secret deal, but it was outed at some point. I don't know how these two work together, to be honest. I mean, I know this is everything going forward. So old businesses, state businesses, those things are shielded. They're not included. But any new venture, any new exploration, even if there has to be a huge amount of investment, 50% of it effectively comes back to the US, 50 goes to Ukraine. Ukraine keeps control of what they go after. Like, I know the details of this have to be worked out. This is kind of like a framework. This is not necessarily the ironed out version of it. But yeah, I get the sense that he's selling off Ukraine. And he's selling off Ukraine without necessarily getting buy-in from the Ukrainian public just to proceed with a war that the majority of Ukraine doesn't even want to continue.
Yeah, this is what it is. And plus, within the framework of those so-called deals, if some situation that overlaps the law of Ukraine and the constitution of Ukraine, the deal has more power than the law and the constitution of Ukraine. So basically, we're spitting on the law of Ukraine. That's what it is all about. And Zelensky is reselling Ukraine like I don't know. I don't want to call it, but it's like it's
What,
like
rape?
prostitution.
If you want to say
Oh
rape,
yeah,
that's the term you want
yeah, yes,
to.
yes.
Yeah.
That's what it is, and that's he's selling it to anybody who is ready to come in and take it. And this is very unfortunate. And as I said, the only one who's going to suffer from this is Ukrainians. U.S. needs to get its act together. Trump administration promised peace. Peace, from my view, needs to come from this administration leaving, getting an executive order, whatever it takes, for Trump to sign off to get all the intel agencies, the CIA, the NSA, the counter intel, the military intelligence out of Ukraine, because those are the people who are sabotaging and will sabotage these peace negotiations, whatever deal he makes, whatever he signs. And because they're the ones who were there before the war, they're the ones who are interested in this war because they started this war. They're the ones who were ready and eager to use Ukrainians to fight Russians before it even ever started 10 years ago in Donbass with the coup and everything else, and then this war and special operations and this war happening today in Ukrainian soil. These people need to get out of Ukraine. The U.S. needs to show that they can move forward on this, and even for Trump himself, he needs to understand if he signs such an executive order or whatever he needs to sign legally to get them out of Ukraine, and they don't comply, and they still will sabotage behind his back, then he will understand who's behind this war. He will understand himself that it's not Russia behind this war, it's the deep state, the swamp, the people who are in the US who are trying to destroy him, are trying to sabotage his deals and kill Ukrainian lives and Russian lives on Ukrainian soil, and are backing Zelensky's regime against Trump. So they're collaborating against, and it will show up. We will see it happen. He just needs to make this move. And he needs to understand that this is the move, one simple step, simple order that will show the truth in all the situation. And if they leave with complying with this and they leave Ukraine, Zelensky will not have protection. He will not have any support from the US intel. The British are there, yes, the French are there, but they are still working with the US. All are being backed by the US, the Europeans, the NATO. Without the US, there's no NATO. Without the US, there's no MI6. They're all we coordinated by the umbrella of the nuclear warheads of the United States of America. So these guys leave. Zelensky regime topples. You're going to have an interim government. Yeah, they'll go. You're going to have all these Nazi groups running around, but then without coordination from the Secret Service of Ukraine and the CIA, those Nazi groups will also fall apart, and it'll be easier to catch them and destroy them. So we'll have a step forward to normalizing Ukraine. You can engage your minerals deal or whatever deal you want, invest in Ukraine, make money, but you at least make a step forward for peace, and you will show the world that you're ready to do it. That's my strategy for the Trump administration. If they want to show a move forward, and this would be a great move forward for everybody. It's going to show Russia, it's going to show Ukrainians, and it's going to leave give Ukraine more sovereignty with negotiating with Russia because they're going to have this MI6 or the CIA backing Zelensky to continue to fight this war because they're the ones who are backing this war and sabotaging Trump. And they're going to sabotage this peace deal, peace negotiations, minerals deal, whatever, just because they're going to lose money on this. And these guys cannot lose because that's what they are. They're the deep state. They're the state within the United States who are trying to undermine the president and the votes of the people in the United States.
Let me ask you this: could Zelensky sign a peace deal? I mean, like, would would he even be able to? Look, recently, a military commander on TV, no less. I think he said he was part of the 141st Division or something, but
Yeah,
effectively said it insinuated that they would march on Kiev if Zelensky either gave up territory, signed a deal, or even acknowledged territory as being part of Russia. Is that true? Is that the case? I mean, is it really to that extent where the president is in fear for his life?
look, he's in fear for his life because he destroyed the country. He put 1 million people into the ground. That's why he's afraid of his life. These guys, the so-called brigaders, the neo-Nazis, the some of the radical military crowd, they're all being coordinated by the security service of Ukraine. I was in the government before. We oversaw the law enforcement and the intel groups in Ukraine. I had files on these neo Nazis in my hands. So I read they all are under the Secret Service of Ukraine, bribed, given money, given protection, given support, given coordination, whatever. And then they're being used for taking over businesses in Ukraine, for the Security Service of Ukraine. Like these guys are owned by the law enforcement, right? It's like the mafia, where you have people owned by them and they work together with the law enforcement. So this is the same thing here, but these guys are totally made up from the law enforcement and the intel groups, and then coordinated by the CIA. So Zelensky is playing the game that he might be afraid. So the problem with Zelensky, he's an illegal president by Article 110 Constitution of Ukraine as of May 20th of last year. So if he signs something, they can be groups in Ukraine which can come out and use this against this peace deal. The Zelensky signs one that says, "Oh, he's now a legitimate president," and they might push it through, and the CIA and the deep state might use it against it and try to continue this war. So for now, Zelensky, he cannot sign a peace deal if he would wanted to, but he doesn't want to because for him it's a dead end. So anybody who's going to be after Zelensky, when Zelensky needs to leave Ukraine, that's why the CIA needs to move out of Ukraine, and the military intelligence of the U.S. needs to move out of Ukraine. He needs to lose his protection, so he has to leave. He needs to understand that he'll leave. Yeah, there's going to be radical groups that are going to be put down, uh, and there has to be put interim government coordinated by Moscow and Washington, that is or agreed upon by Moscow and Washington. That's going to come in, prepare the ground for new elections, sign a peace deal because they're going to be, by the Constitution, they can be legit. As I said, we talk about Telizhenko, somebody coming into the speaker's role and being basically a legitimate leader as it was after the coup in 2013-14. This already happened in Ukraine. The president of Ukraine, Yanukovych, was pushed to flee Ukraine by the Nazi groups. That's why this whole idea of the president is afraid of the Nazi groups is because of Yanukovych, because he fled them. But Yanukovych never worked with the Americans. He was never with the United States. Zelensky is under the United States, and the Nazi groups are under the United States. So they are all in one team. So it's a big game show. Oh, these guys are trying to threaten me. No. Yeah, they're going to threaten him. They're going to try to kill him if there's going to be an order from the outside of Kiev. But we already had an interim government after the coup in 2013-14. The Speaker of the Parliament was acting president for like 5 months or something, and that's when I worked in the cabinet of ministers after as advisor to the first deputy prime minister. So we had this, and then he prepared elections, and those elections happened, and that is it. So why not do it again today? It's a legitimate process, and this acting president, the Speaker of the Parliament, who could be agreed upon by the United States and Russia, can sign a peace deal, which would calm everything down, and then basically the new president, elected president, can again support this peace deal with his signature again to add more even value to it, and have Ukraine say yes, we twice agreed upon a peace, and this is going to be a path for getting Ukraine out of this ditch if somebody would want to do that. But I don't know if somebody wants to do it right now. I know that Trump wants to do it, but there's a lot of people around him and a lot of lobby from the military industrial complex that don't want him to do it. Like, we have people trying to push this war around him. I know that Trump, Tucker Carlson, his family wants peace. They hate Zelensky, but he's listening to his advisors, as he did before, to people like Pompeo, to Mike Pence, who then threw him under the bus when Trump needed their support the most. And then they sanctioned people like me who came out against the Biden crime family because they were not supporting Trump. They were working against him for the deep state. And now we saw where Pompeo is working for the Soros groups in Ukraine. So these people, they're everywhere. You have to clean house, clean house, clean house all the time. You should mention them. You should not be afraid to talk about who these people are.
Okay, under that logic, though, couldn't the next president say Zelensky was illegitimate, and so that mineral deal is also illegitimate. Meaning, can't they
This,
cancel the mineral deal under the same model, under the same
yeah,
idea?
they can, but it's signed by the cabinet of ministers, as I believe. So it's
Ah,
basically the cabinet of ministers is the people who are there. They're voted in by the parliament of Ukraine. So that's why Zelensky did not sign it. It was signed specifically upon with the cabinet of ministers, basically the government of Ukraine, which is still legit, if you can say it.
yeah.
That said, Zelensky is not legit, and anything he does as of May 20th last year is not legit. But the government and the parliament has still the capacity to run the country one way or another.
Wow.
But you can, of course, you can come in and say, look, the previous government, if the United States is not going to bring peace to Ukraine, and one day people will come, Ukraine will gain its peace, Ukraine will be freed from the Nazis, and there will be a government, and the United States will try to push this war until the end. There's going to be more and more people dying, more destructions in Ukraine, but there will be one day a government that will come back to Ukraine and say, "Look, we got our peace, we got our country back, we fought for our country, but the United States didn't do a damn thing. Why should we acknowledge what was done before by the previous government? If you're not going to acknowledge us as a country, you're not going to acknowledge our new government, you're not going to acknowledge what we're going to do right now, you're
Yeah.
not going to acknowledge our new territories, which are free, uh, and Russia freed them. Why should we work with you, and why should we acknowledge all the deals that were made before? And even the loans that were given to Ukraine. We don't know who you gave it to a bunch of Nazis. We're not Nazis, and that the previous government is not legitimate at all, and that can be done also. So it depends on what the U.S. today would want how their actions are going to do, because their actions are also going to reflect on what the future of Ukraine might look like, and what the future government will they want to work with the West, or will they want to also not just sabotage, but put things into a pause and say, look, guys, you did this to our country. You were involved in this. You could have stopped it. You didn't. We're not gonna work with you anymore. Let's rethink what we signed for the last 30 years, and then
Yeah.
we're gonna see if we're gonna work it together or not. So this may also happen. This is gonna be Ukraine is gonna still a pretty big chunk of territory left, and that's gonna be a big question. Everybody's gonna say, "Oh, we're gonna go under Beijing and Moscow totally, and we will not want to work with you at all." So I think that'd be a big spit in the face of the West and say, "You're totally lost. You lost in this war, and we're not going to work with you at all." So that would be also a big option if Ukraine is going to be led this path. But I hope this not going to happen, because it's going to be a bad situation for everybody, and
Yeah.
we can still make good peace happen today.
Well, I mean, I don't know what's in Trump's mind. I know the deals that he's been sending to Russia have been non-starters. I don't know the flexibility that he's giving Witkoff in order to make those agreements. And so a lot of this depends on him. I mean, his ability to influence the European Union, whether or not Zelensky would even accept, that's a big question mark. Zelensky has been going rogue. He's not accepting Crimea. He's not accepting anything. Now, Kellogg went on Fox News and said, well, Ukraine has been open to accepting, I think he said 22 different demands. Okay, he's saying that. But these are the same people who are like, Russia's willing to freeze the conflict. Okay, no, they're not. Zelensky is willing to give up Crimea. Okay, no, he's not. Like, these were things that they were saying, that reality was different. So,
So yeah,
wait a
sorry.
minute. Is that me? That's me? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why that started. I'm sorry. But please continue with that. So, yeah, please continue with that. Please carry that.
Yeah, so look, from what Trump, unfortunately, and his team don't know how to deal with Russia. This is not uh, some small country's conflict that you can come in and say, push in one country and push another, and they're going to make a deal, and that's it. This is not Palestine and Israel war. This is Russia, the largest nuclear country in the world, the largest country in the world, one of the largest military powers in the world, and a strong economic country today also. And you cannot just tell them what to do. So you have to have a plan. I don't believe there is one, a strategy. I understood that before even before Trump won, that they're going to try to push Russia a couple of times until they will not be able to. and they will have to agree upon the deal that's going to be on the table. But the problem is the longer U.S. continues in this war, even with the signed minerals so-called deal in Ukraine that they already gained something out of it, the uh, the harder they fall at the end because they already lost. The West lost. They couldn't topple Russia in the first 3-4 months of the war. That was the main thing for idea of this war. They couldn't do that. They couldn't topple Russia. They lost already. So they're continuing this war just whatever its sake it is. There's no win strategy in this situation for Ukraine at all. Ukraine has lost completely. The West has lost also. So, but at least they can win by not giving a bigger fall at the end. So they have to come out and understand they have to leave Ukraine now. Like, just you got your deals, leave it now, get an interim government agreed upon by both sides, and move from there. Get out the intel groups out of Ukraine, the CIA, the military intelligence in the United States, and then move from there. That's
Are you?
simple steps, and that's what everybody would agree upon. I know there's agreements going on with Russia on different topics right now,
Mhm.
separate from Ukraine,
Yeah.
but Trump is trying to intercombine those things. I think not Trump, but his team, who are trying to undermine his idea of a peace situation with Ukraine, trying to make it more complex. If it's going into a more complex situation, you have to just stop it and rule out everything that the complex stuff, and put out the simple stuff first, and then the hard stuff separate, and then see what you can intercombine and what you can do first. It's simple things. Just put it on a blackboard and do stuff. They're trying to sabotage Trump even from within. Zelensky is like Al Qaeda. He went rogue on the United States, like Osama bin Laden. He was made by the CIA. He was formed by the CIA, the MI6, but now he went rogue because he understands he has the power to do it, and he can buy lobbyists. He can control the government of the United States. He's waiting for elections in Congress next year. That's why they're pushing this. So Trump will lose more support from the people around him. That's what he's been told by the same CIA advisors should be working for the president of the United States. They're telling Zelensky to wait. The
Mhm.
president's going to lose power soon. The elections in Congress, look what he's trying to do. There's a lot of problems in the United States. People give him the support, but everybody understands after big support, the support might come down a bit, and then you're going to lose some elections. So this might lead to losing seats in Congress, and then Zelensky will try to have lobbyists push through Congress the support of Ukraine, just to undermine Trump, to impeach Trump, and etc. And this is being done by the same people that should work for the president of the United States. This is the biggest problem. It's a big uh, problem for Trump. He needs to clean house. Why didn't he clean house in Kiev with the embassy, the U.S. embassy in Kiev? Again, why didn't he clean house with the CIA in Ukraine? Again, he doesn't do that. Why? Because he's being told not to do that. Everybody who tells him not to do that, they're the traitors. He should have listened
I,
to Bannon. He should listen to Tucker Carlson. And these people could tell him. And I think Woodcock is a great negotiator. I think he understands the situation. You should have Tucker Carlson and Woodcock negotiate the situation. I think they'd make it a much faster deal than everybody, all from the deep state and all those swamp officials who are trying to just bleed the United States with this war.
are you optimistic that this is going to be resolved? I had a long conversation with Ted Raw, as another guest on the show. He was far more optimistic than I was on this. You were Ukrainian. You were there when all of this stuff had started. Like you say, you became a whistleblower after the fact when you realized, oh my God, this is what this has turned out to be. Are you optimistic that this is going to resolve?
If Trump gets his act together, yes, he can do it faster. Not
Mhm.
fast, but faster. I understand there's a lot of, he's not God. Russia is ready to negotiate. Just the problem is there are facts that the United States needs to understand. They cannot just leave Ukraine as it is today with the Nazis and the terrorists sitting in the government. Why I'm saying already terrorists, because I said these people are already threatening to bomb civil parades in Russia during
Right.
the
Victory.
memorial of the Victory Day parade. The president, the so-called president, legitimate Zelensky, is saying that publicly, and his minions around him are doing the same thing. So this is a terrorist Nazi state. You cannot leave Ukraine like this. So if he does, Ukraine is going to be the next Somalia right in the heart of Europe. Who is that going to be interested into doing that? It's going to be only the deep state, because I think United States, yes, it's far away, but they're going to be interested in having Ukraine left like this, right in the heart of Europe. Only the deep state can do that, because they're going to be interested in money laundering schemes, which are going to use Ukraine. They're going to use Ukraine for human trafficking, organ trafficking. They need a rogue country like that right there, but not state officials, and I think Trump doesn't want that also. So if he agrees upon it and understands there's simple things that need to be done, yes, there's prospects, and I believe that Trump can do it. If he will be undermined like he was in the first time with people who sabotaged his actions, it might lead to another bloodshed, and the U.S. is just going to get a hard fall, and Russia, one way or another, will free Ukraine from the Nazis. It's going to take a year or two, but it's going to happen. And the West doesn't have the capacity, financial capacity, to continue this war as they did before. So this is what the result is. The problem is the end is going to be peaceful, one way or another. The problem is how many lives are going to be lost before that end happens. It can happen with the lives that we already lost, or it can have more lives lost in this process if this war continues.
Andrii, I hope this doesn't go another 2 years. I hope, man, I hope. I am sick of this war, the senseless loss of life. And look, I was one of those people who initially started off optimistic about a deal until I saw Trump's deal. And he has a long way to go before he gets to something. Like maybe it's a basis to begin negotiations. But like Colonel Wilkerson said, Trump's going to have to eat crow. And he's going to have to kind of accept that, okay, you lost. You tried and lost, and call it a day. I don't think he's listening to this program. Hopefully, if on some random day he's on YouTube and he sees it and he hears what you're telling him, I hope he listens. Andrii, thank you for this, man. Andrii Telizhenko, former Ukrainian diplomat, whistleblower, and a good friend of the show. You have a good one, man. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Jamal, and I hope that somebody does listen, because I want to come back to my home country one day and come back to something that there will be something to come back to. Because that's what I'm fighting for, because my home country is lost for me right now because of what the U.S. made it to be. So hopefully it does come true. Hopefully somebody does listen, and God bless you all.
Yeah, you have a good one, man. Be safe. Thank you.